All right, back again on the CA podcast. It's a Wednesday night, which is, as I mentioned last week, going to be a little bit different. Normally this year we're going to do them on Tuesdays, but because it is a Wednesday, that affords me the opportunity to review some of the waivers that went down. So looking at it, the biggest expenditure was Bootsy, dropping $21 on Andre Brown. He's got Sean Green and Peyton Hillis are kind of fighting to be his number 2 back. So this is sort of a flyer that Bootsy had to take. Bradshaw has already been declared out for Thursday's game. So Bootsy, he's got a starting running back for week 3. Andre Brown, I don't know how good he's going to be. I have David Wilson, so actually I hope Andre Brown's pretty terrible, but, it's worth a shot. Denenberg spent $4 on Daryl Richardson. Richardson seemed to pick up most of the carries last week when Steven Jackson was kind of weirdly benched/injured. Steven Jackson's kind of a walking injury. He's always got some kind of problems. Daryl Richardson, seems like a good pickup for $4. And then also Billy got Brian Hartline for $3. Any really of the Dolphins receivers are kind of, unknowns at this point. I happen to like Devon best, not just because he's been to prison, but also because he went to Hawaii. Really, we don't really know much about the Dolphins receivers. Hartline had, his good game, so certainly $3 is probably worth a look. I picked up the Cardinals defense for $8. $8 is probably too much to spend on them, but they play Mike Vick this weekend, and the only thing that guy loves more than canine anal electrocution is throwing interceptions. So I will roll with the Cardinals because next week they also play Ryan Tannehill. So essentially it's like $4 a week for 2 weeks, and they've been playing real well. They shut down Brady for the most part. So that's your waivers. All right, so looking at the power rankings, starting at the back, Brian Deutsch. He's doing a lot to shed the image of always a bridesmaid and never a bride. That he's kind of been building up for himself the last few years. He was kind of a tough luck loser this past week, the week before in week 1, but this time around he really went for the gusto. Ahmad Bradshaw got hurt out early. Darren McFadden couldn't really build on his big receiving game from week 1. Looks like Aaron Hernandez is going to be out for a number of weeks, and also Antonio Gates is kind of unreliable, so looks like Brian needs some tight end help. Jake Locker's kind of proven to be good, but not really good enough, and Josh Freeman, he's good, but he's not really the statistical monster that you kind of want for a fantasy quarterback. So right now the only winless team in the league, Brian Deutsch, number 12 in the power rankings. Number 11, Ariel. A.J. Green, he certainly appears to be the real deal, but really in order to capitalize on the nice situation he kind of set himself up for last year in that trade with Oaks, Ariel needs Ryan Matthews back out there scoring points and really needs to get more from his guys this year, his draft picks this year. So, I think on paper, Ariel's team is actually really good. DeMarco Murray can turn in kind of, more reliable performances. I think this was sort of a one-off against Seattle. I think DeMarco Murray is going to have a good year. If he can get Brandon Lloyd to kind of pay off on some of his, preseason sleeper status, and then if Jared Cook could sort of turn into a real tight end, I think Ariel's team will compete. It just sort of depends when he gets Matthews back. In at number 10, Billy. Billy had a really excellent week 1, due in large part to Julio Jones' season debut. However, words can't really properly describe how shitty Billy was this past week. He put up a paltry 53.8 points. The only player on his team to score touchdowns was Breeze. He had 1 passing, 1 rushing. Julio Jones laid a serious egg on Monday Night Football. Matt Schaub was really brutal in a victory. Greg Olsen just keeps getting by on name value alone. Billy's team really, let's hope this week was an aberration for him, but they need to perform much better than that. In at number 9 on the power rankings, Jason Plotzker. Plotzker had a pretty solid chance to beat me this week, but Demaryius Thomas scored while Eric Decker laid an egg, and additionally Michael Turner appears, almost totally incapable of advancing the football more than a few yards at a time. He also, sort of appears incapable of celebrating a win correctly, as he got busted for DUI like 15 minutes after the game was over. So that's a whole another issue. Plotzker kind of struck gold when he picked up Vernon Davis. He's been a touchdown machine this year so far, but his play for 2013 strategy has left the cupboard somewhat bare. Rather than spending any more time bashing Plotzker's team, let's all just take a moment and reflect on how happy we are that Brandwine isn't in this league anymore. Just take it in. Just take it all in. All right, number 8, Justin. Matt Ryan and Darren Sproles are continuing to perform for him, but the rest of his team is kind of struggling. Jermaine Gresham is sort of a non-factor. Larry Fitzgerald and Michael Crabtree seem to be somewhat allergic to the end zone, and now it looks like Matt Forte might miss a couple of weeks. So I would say the outlook looks somewhat bleak for Justin. He did perform admirably in the first week, but really needs to improve, on his reliability from some of those guys. All right, in at number 7, Ben. Ben's team is really kind of the Jekyll and Hyde after 2 weeks. I mean, week 1, he was just absolutely terrible. And then this past weekend, he was one of the top 2 scorers. So Trent Richardson, had a big game after being somewhat of a dud in week 1. And, while Peyton Manning kind of cooled off a little bit, I think both of those guys are going to even out, and both will become really productive players, really reliable players. Jermichael Finley continues to just be absolutely terrible. And it looks like new addition Brandon LaFell is paying dividends. So Ben's in good shape. We'll see which of the weeks, week 1 or week 2, is really more fitting for him. In at number 6, me. I had a 2-0 weekend after going 0-2 in our first week. I kind of had to wait until Monday nighter to get everything sorted out. But Demaryius Thomas is kind of looking like Peyton Manning's favorite target. He scored a touchdown in 2 straight games now. I won both my matchups this weekend despite getting absolutely nothing from Jay Cutler. He played like total shit. But my running backs really, took it to him this week. Reggie Bush had a great game, an incredible game. And Marshawn Lynch just looks like he's kind of getting warmed up, got back in the end zone. So I would say I'm in pretty good shape. Cutler's got a big bounce back game this week. Brady actually has yet to really play up to the level that I expect him to play. So I think my team is in pretty good shape, and I've got some room to grow depending on how much better my quarterbacks can get. Number 5, Andrew Oakes. Andy's precious QB duo of Aaron Rodgers and Cam Newton. They really have yet to sort of put it together. At least what Andy had in mind when he drafted him. Week 1, Rodgers played really well while Cam was kind of slow. And then week 2, Cam had a big game while Rodgers pretty much sucked it up against the Bears. So, when those two start stringing things together, I think we all better watch out because obviously he's got Peterson, he's got Foster. I mean, that's, you can't even really make an argument that core 4 is the best in the league. So, number 4, Smith. Smith had a decent week. He beat Oakes. He got big yardage from a lot of his players. And honestly, if even half of his skilled guys had scored touchdowns, probably would have beaten Ben. Probably would be undefeated right now. So Robert Meacham just needs to go. Smith, the rest of your team is solid. Robert Meacham, please stop starting him and immediately cut him. In at number 3, Bootsy. Bootsy is only 2-2, but he had an absolute monster week. He got touchdowns from almost every one of his players. Seems to be making an early stab at draft pick of the year in RG3. And honestly, what's really surprised me about Bootsy's team is how reliably good Willis McGahee is. The guy's like a touchdown machine. I don't know. Honestly, I just assumed he was over the top. And when Bootsy kept him, I honestly kind of laughed at Bootsy a little bit, but I was wrong. But Willis McGahee has been turned into a really good fantasy player. Number 2, John Krause. Krause is 3rd in total points and had another big week from C.J. Spiller. So far, giving Miles Austin to get Mike Wallace and C.J. Spiller looks like the trade of the year. A little bit more on that later. Krause has 2 of the most reliable quarterbacks in fantasy. Looks to be a really serious player moving forward. This is the best unit I think Krause has assembled in quite some time, and I think that's due to the fact that there seems to be this urban legend that Krause is this crazy used car salesman with his trades, and so no one's trading with him, and so he's actually keeping some of the players that he drafted, although he did make some moves early. But he's got a good core. He's doing a good job so far. And then finally in at number 1, Andrew Denenberg. Denenberg is the only undefeated team. He's 2nd overall in points. But I would say, especially with Krause being a really strong number 2, Denenberg's grip on the top spot is pretty tenuous to say the least. He was lucky enough to play the 2 low scorers of the week. I would have lost to Ben, Bootsy, Krause, and myself. Denenberg really needs a lot more from Romo, and now Hakeem Nicks is out this Thursday. Jamal Charles is hurting. Apparently it's the same surgically repaired knee that's causing him problems. So looks like Denenberg's depth is going to be tested, but for now, he holds the number 1 spot. Looking ahead to week 3, a couple of big games. The biggest is myself versus Krause, kind of the headliner. I've got Colors looking for a big bounce-back game against the Rams, as I mentioned, but Brady does have a pretty tough matchup on Sunday night against the Ravens. Krause is going to have Roethlisberger picking on that shitty Raiders defense that got torn up by Ryan Tannehill last week, but he does have Rivers going against the Falcons D that picked off Peyton Manning 3 times, so I don't know, it could be pretty even. I'm not sure really how to call that one. I would say another big matchup looking at it is Oaks versus Denenberg. This is Denenberg, he's going to have some big games from his running backs. They've got good matchups, but the rest of his guys are, kind of locked in there. Pretty tough ones, tough to call. Oaks has really ugly matchups for his running backs. Adrian Peterson is going against the Niners, which is the best D in football, and Arian Foster is going against the Broncos, who can also sort of lay the wood. He does have Rodgers going on Monday Night Football, so I would imagine Cam Newton's going to have a huge performance on Thursday Night Football. I would say it's going to be up to Rodgers on Monday night to decide this one. All right, time to open up the old mailbag. Thanks to those of you who contributed. Sorry about the late notice. It just kind of slipped my mind, but did get some good questions in here. Starting off with a topic I was discussing a little bit earlier in the show here, a trade between Denenberg and Krause. This says, Mr. Bauer, I'm 4-0, and I traded the number one running back in fantasy and speedy Mike Wallace to Krause for Rashad Jennings' worthless ass and Miles Austin. I'm rationalizing this by saying Spiller was bad for my team's morale, and they responded only when I sent him packing. Tell me I'm not crazy, and please provide a real-life example of this addition by subtraction. Perhaps David Caruso leaving NYPD blue? I know the opposite occurred when The Simpsons killed off Maude Flanders. Not that she was any great shakes to begin with, but the show has sucked since right about that time. I'm rambling. Go. Sent from my iPhone. Denenberg, addition by subtraction, it's kind of an interesting topic. Bill Simmons would suggest the Ewing theory is kind of a real-life example of this. I would point you towards, University of Tennessee winning the national title the year after shipping out Peyton Manning. Jay Fiedler took the Dolphins deep into the playoffs the year after Dan Marino retires. And then the Lions finally made the playoffs the year after Barry Sanders retired. So, Manning, Marino, Sanders, those guys really sucked, right? I mean, just like Mike Wallace and C.J. Spiller suck at fantasy, right? Am I right? Denenberg, you made a terrible trade. You should be ashamed of yourself. All right, moving on to the next question. This comes from new league member Andrew Smith. He says, if you could blow coke off of any non-human surface, what would it be? Oak says the Magna Carta, but I say the Hubble Space Telescope mirror. P.S. in the human category, I said Michelle Obama. I'm pretty sure Oak said something uninspired like Jessica Alba. It's a very interesting question, Smith. Thank you for contributing to the mailbag. I always love our non-football, non-league-oriented questions. I'm always very happy to answer questions of any nature. I would say, it's something we've sort of all wondered from time to time. I think the Magna Carta is an excellent answer. As we all know, I love the defaming of historic documents. The Hubble telescope would be tight, but you'd actually have to be in outer space while doing it to really, kind of make it the full experience. What I would suggest would be the wing of Air Force One while in flight. And I understand that the wind would pose somewhat of a challenge, but really the look on old Barry Obama's face would be priceless. Speaking of Obama, I like your suggestion in the human category. I might recommend Karen Lewis of the Chicago Teachers Union. She's the head. She's not a looker, I get that, but she's got plenty of room to chop up the lines. You could really get some old rails going on that one. All right, last question from the mailbag. Did I set the this is coming from Billy. It says, did I set the all-time low score? And then also, what should be the penalty for failing to break 50 in a week? I suggest getting pied by the clown at a bar on clown night. Clown's discretion when and where. And if you're a clown, pie yourself. From Billy. So, Billy, I looked into it. You actually did not score the lowest point total in league history. You actually knocked me out of the third spot. I now have the fourth lowest. You're the third lowest point total of all time. Oaks was second with a 53.3 point effort from 2 years ago, while the dubious distinction of lowest weekly scorer with a pathetic 51.4 points last season goes to Justin Deutsch. So excellent work there, Justin. Keep up the good work. The penalty for not breaking 50 should be pretty severe, considering it's never been done. Honestly, you'd almost have to really be trying not to do it. So I like your suggestion. I would say add it to the weenie talk. So that's pretty much it. Good luck this weekend, guys. We'll potentially be getting together, it sounds like, to watch some games. Bears have a big one. They need it desperately. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.